Alexander the Great, conqueror of empires, master of armies, and a man who reshaped the ancient world by the age of 30. His victories against Persia, his march into Egypt, and his push into India are the stuff of history books. But beyond the battles and the maps lies something even more intriguing: the legends. For more than 2,000 years, Alexander's life has been told not only as history, but as myth. Stories of impossible feats, divine parentage, and mysteries that scholars still debate to this day. Some of these tales may be grounded in fact. Others may be pure invention. But together, they forged Alexander's reputation as more than a king, more than a conqueror, as something almost superhuman. Today, we're diving into the untold legends of Alexander the Great. From the boy who tamed the wildest horse in Greece, to the man who slashed through prophecies with his sword, to the godlike ruler whose death sparked one of history's greatest mysteries. These are the stories that turned Alexander into a legend. The first legend of Alexander doesn't begin on the battlefield, but in the training yard of his youth. At just 12 years old, Alexander was presented with a horse, a massive black stallion named Bucephalus. The animal was notorious, wild, and dangerous. No rider could control him. Each attempt ended the same way: the stallion bucking, rearing, and throwing men into the dirt. Many believed the horse was cursed, a beast too savage to ever be broken. But Alexander was different. As the crowd mocked and jeered, he studied the horse carefully. Then he realized something the others had missed. Bucephalus wasn't wild, he was afraid. The stallion panicked at his own shadow, spooking violently whenever it crossed his vision. Confident in his discovery, Alexander begged his father, King Philip II, to let him try. At first, Philip laughed, but Alexander insisted, promising that if he failed, he would pay for the horse himself, an impossible price for a boy. With the crowd watching, Alexander calmly turned Bucephalus toward the sun, guiding him so the shadows no longer flickered across his sight. In a single motion, he mounted the beast and rode. Where trained warriors had been thrown to the ground, the boy held steady. Bucephalus galloped across the field, tamed not with brute strength, but with understanding. The crowd erupted in astonishment. Philip, his pride swelling, is said to have told his son, "My boy, you must find a kingdom great enough for your ambitions, for Macedonia is too small for you." That prophecy would prove true. From that day, Bucephalus became Alexander's constant companion, in parades, in battles, and in legend. Together, they charged through Greece, Persia, and deep into Asia. The stallion became almost as famous as his rider, a symbol of Alexander's destiny to conquer the impossible. When Bucephalus finally died after years of relentless campaigning, Alexander honored him not as an animal, but as a hero. He founded a city where the horse fell, Bucephala, in modern-day Pakistan. Their story was passed down not simply as a tale of a boy and his horse, but as a moment that foreshadowed everything to come. The young prince who saw what others could not and turned the impossible into the inevitable. Years later, Alexander's reputation was no longer that of a promising boy, but of a rising conqueror. By 333 BCE, he had marched deep into Asia Minor, chasing his destiny as master of the known world. In the city of Gordium, he encountered one of the most famous challenges in ancient lore, the Gordian Knot. The knot was no ordinary tangle of rope. It was an intricate puzzle tied to an ancient ox cart, its ends hidden deep within the coils. Legend held that the knot had been tied centuries earlier by King Gordius, the city's founder. An oracle prophesied that whoever could unravel the knot would rule all of Asia. For generations, men had tried and failed, their efforts ending in frustration and humiliation. Alexander, never one to turn away from destiny, stepped forward. The crowd gathered, eager to see how the young king would fare. At first, he tugged at the knot, searching for the loose end. But the ropes were old, twisted, and impossibly tight. Most men would have admitted defeat. Alexander, however, was not most men. Frustrated but unwilling to be mocked by prophecy, he drew his sword. In a single decisive stroke, he sliced through the knot, the pieces falling away in an instant. The crowd gasped. Had he cheated the prophecy or fulfilled it in his own way? Alexander famously declared that it made no difference. The knot was undone and the prophecy complete. This act became one of his defining legends. It was not just about solving a puzzle. It was about how Alexander approached every obstacle in his life. Where others struggled within the rules, he redefined them. To him, the prophecy was never about patience or cleverness, but about destiny. And in that moment, destiny was on his side. The story of the Gordian Knot spread quickly, reinforcing the idea that Alexander was not just a skilled general, but a man fated to rule. To his soldiers, it was proof that no challenge was beyond him. To his enemies, it was a warning. Alexander did not play by the old rules. He made new ones. To understand Alexander's legend, you have to step beyond the battlefield and into the realm of myth. From the very beginning, whispers surrounded his birth. His mother, Olympias, claimed that Alexander was no ordinary child, that he was the son of Zeus himself. According to legend, the night before her marriage to Philip II, Olympias dreamed that a bolt of lightning struck her womb, filling it with fire. Philip too had his own vision. He claimed to see a lion sleeping beside Olympias. These omens fueled the belief that Alexander was born of something greater, touched by the divine. Olympias herself was a devoted follower of Dionysus, and some stories even claimed she participated in secret rituals with snakes, hinting at Alexander's otherworldly conception. When Alexander was born in 356 BCE, the signs did not end. That very same night, far away in Greece, the temple of Artemis at Ephesus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, burned to the ground. Historians later claimed that Artemis herself had abandoned her temple to attend Alexander's birth. To the people of Macedonia, this was no coincidence. It was fate. As Alexander grew, his sense of divine destiny only deepened. He came to believe that he was not simply the heir of Philip, but a son of Zeus Ammon, the god worshipped in both Greece and Egypt. During his campaign in Egypt, Alexander made a pilgrimage to the oracle of Siwa, deep in the desert. There, priests are said to have greeted him as son of the god. What they whispered to him in private was never revealed, but Alexander left convinced he was more than mortal. This belief in his divine bloodline wasn't just ego. It was a tool, a powerful piece of propaganda. To his soldiers, it made him a chosen leader. To conquered peoples, it made him more than a foreign king. It made him a godlike ruler who stood above mere men. Whether or not he truly believed it, Alexander wielded this legend as skillfully as his sword. In the end, history remembers Alexander not only as a general, but as a figure who blurred the line between man and myth. His divine parentage, whether truth or invention, gave his conquests the glow of inevitability, as if every empire he toppled was simply bowing to the will of the gods. For Alexander, conquest was never just about land or power. It was about legacy. He wanted more than an empire. He wanted eternity. The legends of his quest for immortality are some of the most fascinating, blurring the line between history and myth. As his armies pushed further east into Persia and India, stories emerged of Alexander seeking out the secrets of everlasting life. Ancient writers claimed he heard whispers of a water of life, a hidden spring that granted immortality to any who drank from it. Determined to find it, Alexander ventured with his men through harsh deserts, thick jungles, and uncharted lands. Some accounts even describe him journeying into the depths of the unknown world, beyond the edges of the maps. In one tale, Alexander descended into the sea itself, sealed inside a glass diving bell, searching the ocean floor for wisdom denied to mortals. In another, he encountered the fabled Tree of the Sun and Moon, which spoke to him, telling him his fate, that he would conquer the world, but his life would be short. These stories may sound fantastical, but to the ancients, they reinforced the idea that Alexander was not merely a king. He was a man wrestling with the limits of mortality itself. Perhaps the most striking legend comes from his march through India. There, Alexander supposedly encountered the Brahmins, holy men who lived in poverty yet claimed to possess eternal wisdom. When Alexander demanded they share the secret of immortality, they told him a bitter truth, that immortality lies not in endless life, but in living with honor and leaving behind a legacy that endures. For once, Alexander did not respond with the sword. Instead, he listened. In the end, despite all his searching, Alexander never found the water of life. But in a way, he achieved immortality after all. His empire may have fractured after his death, but his name, his image, and his legends live on more than 2,000 years later. He became eternal not through magic or divine springs, but through the power of memory, story, and myth. By the summer of 323 BCE, Alexander had conquered an empire stretching from Greece to India. Yet, at only 32 years old, the man who seemed unstoppable was suddenly struck down. His death remains one of the greatest mysteries in history. In the city of Babylon, after days of feasting and drinking with his generals, Alexander fell violently ill. Ancient accounts describe him shivering with fever, racked with pain, and slowly losing his ability to speak or move. Within less than 2 weeks, the conqueror of the world was gone. But how? That question has haunted historians for centuries. Some sources claim he died of natural causes, a fever, perhaps malaria or typhoid, made worse by years of exhaustion and relentless campaigning. Others suggest something more sinister, that he was poisoned by rivals who feared what he might do next. After all, Alexander had begun speaking of new invasions, Arabia, perhaps even Rome. For some of his generals, the thought of endless war under a godlike king was too much to bear. And then there's the strangest theory of all. Later writers claimed Alexander's body showed no signs of decay for 6 days after his death. To some, this was proof he was more than human, a divine being untouched by corruption. To others, it hinted that he may not have been fully dead when they sealed him in his coffin, that he had fallen into paralysis, mistaken for death. If true, it would mean that the great conqueror's final moments were spent entombed, alive but unable to move or cry out. Whatever the truth, Alexander's death threw his empire into chaos. Without an heir strong enough to rule, his generals, the Diadochi, carved his empire into fragments, sparking decades of bloody wars. Yet even as his empire crumbled, the legend of Alexander only grew. To his followers, his mysterious death was not an end, but the beginning of his transformation from man into myth. Alexander's story is one of conquest, brilliance, and ambition without limits. But what truly made him unforgettable were the legends woven around his life. From taming Bucephalus to slicing through the Gordian Knot, to claiming the blood of gods, seeking immortality, and dying under mysterious circumstances, each tale elevated him beyond the role of a king. They turned him into a figure larger than life. His empire crumbled within a generation, yet his name endured. Cities still bear his mark. Alexandria in Egypt remains a living testament to his vision. Philosophers, generals, and emperors for centuries looked to him as the model of greatness. Even in faraway cultures, from Persia to India to Rome, Alexander was remembered not just as a conqueror, but as a legend. And maybe that's the true immortality he sought. He may not have found a fountain of eternal life, but he found something greater, a place in human memory. 2,000 years later, we still speak his name. We still tell his stories. And we still debate whether Alexander the Great was a man of destiny, a son of the gods, or simply a mortal who knew how to turn history into legend. What do you think? Was Alexander truly touched by the divine, or just a master of his own myth? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this dive into history's legends, make sure to like, subscribe, and join me for more forgotten chronicles from the past.